So dudes, I want to talk about how Marathon has done the strongest PR 180 of an upcoming video game I've ever seen. If you had told me 9 months ago that I was pregnant and that Marathon was going to turn out to be a good game, I would have told you that both of those things are physically incapable of happening. But it looks like Bungie might be able to carry this game to term. I think Marathon is going to pull this off for a lot of different reasons. I think that the art style that's been talked about ad nauseum is very inspired, creative, interesting, really, really cool to see. And while I still think the hero system is a bit of a letdown, I can forgive it because some of the mechanics that they've shown off recently do look fun to play. And I also want to talk about something that might make some people uncomfortable. I believe Marathon has become a target of the culture war, which is really fucking funny. So let's dive in. So what the hell happened, right? How did we go from this pretty awful like to dislike ratio plus me complaining about it in one of the comments to a pretty overwhelmingly positive sort of reception to the art style of the game, the presentation, the cinematic appeal of what Bungie is trying to do here, and even the gameplay. This is just pure raw, completely unedited gameplay with a very, very healthy like to dislike and very positive comments. People who were excited about this game coming out. My best guess, basically, somebody pulled the trigger too early in terms of whether this game was ready to be seen by the public. This trailer that everybody watched back then, rightfully so, was very off-putting because the game wasn't done yet. And I know that people will look at this and go, okay, dude, yeah, of course it wasn't done yet. It was just a trailer. How could you be so cruel? How could you be so mean to Bungie for jumping the gun so early? And I will admit, I've learned an important lesson here in terms of game development and the actual pace of how things can get done. Maybe, this is just something where I have flew off the handle too quickly, and I apologize for that. However, I still think that if you're going to lead with this and you're going to say gameplay overview trailer, this whole situation does a really, really good job of showcasing why it's important for you to wait until it's ready for the public to see before you move forward with it, because lack of polish is a very important psychological phenomenon in terms of how people perceive your game. If you had told me that this game was getting ready to come out in like 3 months, I would have told you you were absolutely out of your mind. I would have told you that the gunplay looks really choppy and floaty, and why is this guy taking 80 million bullets to down? I would have told you the graphics compared to what they showed off, eventually in cinematics later on, and of course in this really, really well done cinematic short that they did, coinciding with the launch of this gameplay overview trailer. I would have just been more confused than anything, because this looks so vibrant and rich, and there's texture, there's colors, right? There's oomph here, right? There's material that's been put into the presentation of this. If you were to tell me that this was supposed to look like this, I would have, I just don't even know what I would have told you. I would have said, I don't know what happened. Again, like super, super spongy TTK. Lots of confusing things about this gameplay trailer. And so what we got, right, this is the artistic vision of the game as you see in this cinematic. Lots of bright colors, very toxic kind of colors. I think that's sort of the idea, is to make the world feel very chemical, make it feel very acidic and off-putting to nature, something very robotic. A very, very interesting art style, something that I can't really think of being replicated by pretty much any other game in general, let alone movie, TV show, whatever. Truly one of the most unique looking pieces of art in the landscape right now. So we go from this to this, and you kind of look at this initially and you're like, okay, like what happened here? How did we get lost? And eventually it looks like we've arrived to where they want it to be. And this, iteration of the game, as you can see now, which is what a lot of people are going to play tomorrow, looks like a finished product, right? The lighting looks better. The shaders don't look as flat and dried out. There's reflections. The plastics have more realistic sort of lighting and edges to them, sharp colors. The gunplay looks very satisfying. That's your battle rifle, right? This is the same team that put together Halo. A lot of the original Halo guys are working on this game. So I think that the Bungie sauce with the gunplay is certainly there. That looks sick, right? Like all of this looks really fun. A lot of people are upset that this marathon in 2026 doesn't look like the gritty, metal album sort of version of 90s science fiction that it did back in the 90s with the original marathon games. My counter argument to that is, if your argument is that the new art style is bad in terms of its quality, and that's why we shouldn't go with it, you are not approaching this in good faith, and frankly, I don't think you have a very good eye for visual art. If we're just going to be completely honest, if you're going to look at this and say it's not for me, that's one thing. But if you're going to look at this and say this is bad quality, I think you are absolutely out of your mind. Some of these environments still seem to capture that sort of cosmic horror, distant, alone in space kind of feeling that games like the original Marathon and System Shock pioneered way, way back in the day. I think that there are echoes of 90s Marathon in this Marathon. This environment is one of those examples here. I feel like the bright reds and purples don't make me feel comfortable, right? They make me feel isolated, like I'm in a foreign sort of manufactured environment, to the point where it feels oppressive, like it's looking for me in some kind of way, like it's trying to find a fault with me. It feels very, very moody, dark, dreary, robotic to the point of active hostility towards something human. And that kind of uncomfortable feeling that I get, in my opinion, is part of the art. I think that's what makes the cosmic horror of this franchise work so well. And I think that in many respects, I think that 2026 Marathon is still capturing the vibe that the original Marathon games did. It's just doing so in a way that looks slightly different. And that is the mark of really, really interesting art to me. There are plenty of examples, right, of pieces of art, right, iterations on a theme, comic books, fucking Warhammer 40K, right? There's stuff from 50 years ago for comic books that looks nothing like what you watch in the movies today. Now, some people can double down and say, yeah, that's because they're all bad today. Sure. But I watched Superman relatively recently, the new one, directed by James Gunn. And just because Superman looked differently 60 years ago, just because Superman looked differently than the cartoons that I watched when I was a kid, than the James Gunn Superman, does not mean that it's bad. I think that making that argument is a very bizarre thing to double down on. It feels like a very forced argument. It feels like a very emotionally charged and willfully imposed argument that's done for the sake of something rather than for the sake of artistic discussion. Basically, an artist who goes by Anti-Real is widely known, to the circles that follow these kinds of things as popularizing a style of art called graphical realism. Graphical realism makes usage of a lot of sharp shapes, sharply defined, contrasting sorts of bright colors, almost kind of manufactured and sort of chemical sort of looks, kind of hard to describe, but the moment that you see it, you kind of get it. If you listen to Vaporwave, if you've ever looked at a Vaporwave album cover on YouTube at any point, you've probably seen this kind of art style iterated on in some way, shape, or form. It's a very techie looking kind of art, for lack of a better way of putting it, which kind of fit the theme of what Marathon was doing. And then somebody at Bungie lifted some emblems that she worked on, Anti-Real, the artist, without crediting her. So somebody, an employee at Bungie, stole somebody else's work and then put it into their product. I have to use my orb for lighting now because the sun is down and I don't have a more powerful lighting solution than these lights. So bear with me as a professional content creator figures out how to make videos after they've been doing this for 10 fucking years. Well, eventually, she said the Marathon art issue has been resolved with Bungie and Sony Interactive Entertainment to my satisfaction. So I want to point out that Homegirl said Sony Interactive Entertainment. It sounds to me like there was some form of legal something, some kind of correspondence that took place between her and Sony. So Sony caught wind of this. And I think, aptly, somebody said here, yeah, she got a huge bag. I'm relatively certain that's exactly what happened. Now, what bothers me about the way that this conversation has been had is that a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, are talking about how Marathon stole stole her art style. And that's not the same thing as stolen art, right? The thing about this Marathon situation is that it's not just a few assets and posters copy-pasted. It's a whole aesthetic, a whole vibe setting the tone for everything. The plagiarism is woven into the DNA. Here are some other examples. This is a very common kind of sci-fi sort of theme. I'm sure there have been a couple of cyberpunk ads that look kind of similar to this. At the end of the day, nobody can copyright an art style per se. No matter how unique somebody does something, it doesn't prevent other people legally from trying to do an iteration on the concepts explored in that art. And, you get here, and Joseph Cross, one of the art directors, talks a little bit more specifically about it. Marathon is heavily inspired by the world of competitive sports, the sharp kinds of bright contrasting colors that are used to denote functional shape and form. It's commonly something that's seen in motorsports, in the Olympics. Joseph Cross has his own blog, of course, where you can actually look and you can see that the man has been working on iterations, in this world of art as far back as over a decade ago, right? Like, this isn't the first time that somebody has done something with the style of, what's so-called graphic realism. It's obvious that Anti-Real had some assets stolen and put into the game without the quality control to prevent it from taking place. But this idea that Anti-Real is the reason that Marathon exists right now is rage bait. In my opinion, just rage bait. So why is it important for Marathon to fail, right? Why are so many people repeating this misinformation over and over and over again to try to, let epic dunk on people on Twitter? It's because they want it to fail. It's because they want Marathon to fail so that they can confirm a preconceived notion that they have about gaming and how Bungie is the man and how they're another corpo yakety yak. And if Marathon can fail, then it'll be another blow to the big corpo monster of wokeness, essentially. And I don't think that I'm speaking out of turn when I say this. I don't think that I am being hyperbolic when I describe the perspective as that way. A lot of people would tell me, Gwen, you're reading too much into it. You're overreacting. People aren't responding to Marathon because it's woke. They're responding negatively to it because it doesn't look good. And that's fine. If you can look at the game and you can say, I'm not interested in this, more power to you. I think that more consumers, I think that more people, I kind of hate the word consumer if I'm being fucking honest, but more participants in the marketplace of video game ideas should feel comfortable with saying, this isn't for me. However, if other people play it, that's fine. We don't do that, right? We don't do that with gaming because gaming as a hobby has become heavily politicized and it's come under great scrutiny and targeting by people that want to foment discord online. One of the reasons that this is happening is because Marathon is a shooter game. First-person shooter games were thematically, for a really, really long time, associated with military-esque themes. The modern military shooter, the World War II shooter, right? Those were the mainstream kinds of bro games that we've had, throughout the course of the mid-2000s and eventually into the 2010s. But relatively recently, we've undergone a pretty serious transformation in terms of what is palatable to the market, what is palatable to the average consumer. And as it turns out, we kind of have a very strong dissecting line between tactical kind of dad shooters, like Hell Let Loose, that obviously don't have Nicki Minaj running around shooting pink laser beams. And then we have Call of Duty, which used to be a World War II shooter, turning into Nicki Minaj running around shooting pink laser beams. There is a very, very strong sort of demarcation that a lot of people are drawing in the sand right now to kind of stake out shooter games as theirs, right? As their kind of serious, not, woke coded, not SJW, right? To invoke an older term, I guess it's a little out of favor these days. It's a little dated sort of gaming, right? Gaming that is separate from the weirdo lefties over there with their trans people and they're gay. Marathon looks bright and colorful. There's dudes with black lipstick. They're not really dudes with black lipstick. They're robots with black lips, but the implication is there. It's about the implication. Marathon used to be big cyborg man, large gun, shoot alien. Now, black lipstick robot. Mohawk bitch. What? Blue hair? What? How dare they? How dare they? What have you done? What have you done to John Gunn? Do you know how many people knew about Marathon? I can tell you how many people knew about Marathon, okay? Because I was a forum warrior in fucking middle school. The amount of times that people brought up Marathon was a combined total of 0 times. Because the only fucking people who were gaming on a Mac in the 90s were guys like Steve Wozniak. And there was like 5 Steve Wozniaks in the world. It was a niche cult classic. It was good. It did a lot for the genre. But it was a small population of people that even got to fucking play it. If you enter into the Twitter marketplace on this sort of thing, if you end up getting a tweet that breaches containment and then the chuds find it, then of course, because it's getting algorithmically like driven around their specific feeds, then they will look at this and they will make arguments about how the bright colors and the robot with lipstick is gay, and that's why the game is going to fail. I mean, I can just keep scrolling here, and it's just constant. Like, the game will do bad. The game will do bad because it is woke. That's why the game will do badly. I believe it will do bad. It won't sell many copies. Because there's a guy with lipstick. That's why it won't be popular or good. I mean, they're like, the motherfuckers actually believe this. They seriously believe this. And the arguments that are being brought up about this game are related to Concord, to, I guess, a Dragon Age game that didn't do particularly well. I've never played Dragon Age. Oh, Grum's found my tweet. Oh, that's why. Oh, that's why it blew up. Oh, shit. Okay. Ah. Okay, now I know. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Anyway, all that aside, please don't walk away from this video thinking that I believe that if you don't like Marathon, you're a weirdo on Twitter or a fascist, okay? People are allowed to have their fucking opinions about the game. If you don't want to play the game, you don't have to play the game. If you don't think it looks good, I think that's crazy to say, but, the basis under which somebody comes to an opinion like that can be one that is not motivated by partisan politics. And I know I talk about my dad a lot on this channel, but my dad was the kind of guy who I could show a couple of cool frames and cool character designs, cool level designs to my dad of Marathon, and even he would have been able to appreciate it for its artistic merit. A lot of what fascists do in order to create conformity within their ranks is to find visual identifiers and symbols and behaviors that form within a very, very small, predetermined, I'm going to say a woke word, heteronormative kind of framework that avoids esotericism and that avoids brightness, right? That avoids difference. And you take one look at a game like Marathon, and this is a game that is going to scare away this group of people. It's gonna scare away this group of people because it looks that different enough. That's gonna be the ultimate litmus test here. A game like Marathon, in its visual approach, I've commonly compared it to like how poisonous frogs, evolved bright colors to deter predators from eating them. And one of the comments that I got on this thread, was, yeah, so that actually worked out for the bird that didn't eat the poison frog. Yuck, yuck, and that, like, no shit, dipshit. It primarily worked out for the frog that isn't getting eaten, because the bird is going to go eat a green frog and not the blue frog. You fucking dipshit. The goal is to get you to leave me the fuck alone. And I think that's something that's going to happen with Marathon pretty strongly here, is that there's going to be a very, very strong kind of demarcating line between people who are obsessed with this shit, where they go very full frontal with it and very public and self-report how fucking crazy they are, how obsessed they are with making every single fucking video game into a culture war target. And guys like Drewski, who I'm not going to try to guess his politics, but I'm just going to, take a hunch that he might be, not as left-leaning as somebody like me. And there is a line, right? Like, there is a line between a Drewski and a Louis Rossman and fucking Grums. And I think that people are starting to realize that this cult of like MAGA woke is no fucking different. Well, it's not no different, but it bears a lot of similarities to the quote unquote blue hair SJWs of like 2013, 2015. The primary difference now is that, the ultimate effect of SJWs getting in charge of things is there might be a few more woke video game characters. But if fascists get in charge of things, then people get fucking hurt. And that's, in my opinion, a much more pressing problem. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think Marathon is going to do some really important things for the industry, and it's going to kind of carve out its own place in the industry. It's going to attract a certain kind of gamer that I think is, in it for the right reasons, rather than trying to make it into some kind of bizarre, like, cultural battleground of some kind. And when the game does well, a lot of these people are going to pretend that they said, oh, well, I just, of course it was going to do well. All the trans people came out in full force. And it's like, sure thing, man. That's what you said. You didn't say that it was going to bomb because there's like 5 trans people in the known fucking universe. That's not what you said, right? You said that it was going to do well because you were at war with this implacable force of wokeness, and the war will never stop until I don't fucking know. Until what? You stop making video games that aren't specifically for you. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Anyway, you can do your part to fight the Twitter weird by buying Marathon. That's a joke. If you don't want to play the fucking game, don't play it. I'm just noticing, I'm a noticer. I'm noticing that a lot of chuds really, really hate this fucking game. And I think I know why. It's because there's a bad bitch with blue hair in it. See you guys on the Server Slam tomorrow. Deuces.